This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello and welcome back to Party Loaded. It is the greatest podcast on video gaming on the internet, which I can't back up, but let's be
Bold
positive and
claim.
have a great
Big
note of it. Well, in our stratosphere anyway. It's good. Fun to be here. It is Tuesday evening on the 27th of February. I'm joined by Jam. Hello, Jam. How you doing?
What is up?
I don't know. What is up with you? What's up with you?
Just curious about you tonight.
Luke's gone mad with very little power.
That's it. I'm having a good time. Christian's here too. Ollie is here also.
Hello.
Luke is here too. That's me, in case you didn't work it out. Hello.
Is it me you're looking for?
Yeah, that's
No,
it.
ever.
Thanks, man.
No, it sounds like a good time to have a good sing-along night. So who would like to pick the next track? What would you like to go with? If you had to do a musical episode, what would you lead with? What was that?
Bullets? Bullets.
Bullets?
What, by Creed?
Yes. Musical. No. PUBG, the music of bullets.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
I've done a lot of PUBG over the weekend.
As opposed to the hiding in bathtub anthem, which is the sound of silence. So, sure.
I mean, you could still hear the bullets. You're
Okay.
just less exposed to the bullets and not
Until someone
trading
opens
the
the door.
bullets.
All right, well, tell
Trading
us
them.
about your bullet experience, because you had a decent week of the PUBG from what I saw.
Did okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a somewhat average player. Haven't had a lot of luck with the games because been focused on, having fun with friends and junk. But we did okay on the weekend. Hey, Ollie.
We did all right, indeed.
We jumped in with some friends and we managed to get a couple chicken dinners and
Nice.
pretty consistently get sort of, near the final circle. Yeah, and then jumped back in just before the show tonight, and I died 3 times very rapidly.
You guys playing the new map? Or
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
it's a mix, so it's sort of
Yeah,
random
outfits.
where you get dropped, but it's good fun. I still don't know the new map very well. I really
Dope.
love dropping on the old map now just because it feels nostalgic, because I had a huge chunk of time where I didn't play, but I feel like somehow I've, figured it out a little more. I'm a little more fast at the gearing up and confident in my weapon choices. Some of my shots, I still make bad choices, and some of my shooting is rubbish, but it's more consistently good than inconsistently all over the place, So, good fun.
Must admit, I'm
I'm
actually
enjoying it.
curious to jump in there now that I've got my new PC up and running to see whether the performance
Oh,
has a boost or not. But so
Yeah, totally. It was the computer holding you back, Luke.
Oh no, I know that's not the case. So let's not even pretend that. No, I'm just curious more than anything. It's been a little while since I've fired up PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, but what's the general lay of the land at the moment with regards to map preference? Are most people flocking to one map or the other, or is it still a good mix?
Well, you
or?
don't really
You
choose.
don't get a choice.
It's
Right.
a random drop.
Yeah,
and
but you don't know whether there's like a bit of a buzz online for which one's kind of the hot drop or not.
I've heard some
Oh.
criticism of the new one.
Yeah?
Some
I think
people don't
it's-
like it.
Yeah, but I'm starting to appreciate it. The more I play in it, it seems quite barren, but it's actually quite three-dimensional. Interestingly, you can usually find a little crease in the landscape to tuck yourself into if you have to travel long distances, which is really neat.
I definitely agree with that. The verticality is much appreciated compared to the other map.
You've got these massive outcrops of stone that you're just constantly swinging your eyes back to because you're waiting for that little dot or a little flash. That means someone's just camping up there, seeing what they can see. But yeah, it's good fun. But one game that you should reinstall, Luke, ASAP is Armello.
Already done it. I'm good.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Because we played that again on the weekend, and after some of the hiccups they had after the last update, it seemed to work very smoothly.
It was back.
It was delightful.
Yeah, because what did they add in
Was.
the last sort of Road to 2.0 patch? There's a couple of
was-
new cards, isn't there?
2 cards, yeah. I haven't seen them in action yet. I don't know, have they reintroduced them since rolling back the update?
I'm not sure.
They may not have, which might be why. Although we don't go through trickery deck very much. I keep smashing through the magic deck.
I think with the new characters you may more because one of them uses it pretty heavily.
Oh yes.
So yeah.
We haven't been using her as much. But yeah, it's so much fun and it just spoiled for choice with character wise. Like at the start of the game, I'm spending 20 solid seconds just picking the character at the start and then like in a mad panic trying to choose all of my other items so that it complements the character.
I'm going by memory here, but isn't there a random character option when you start the game?
Yes.
There is.
Given that we're at the point now where we've all played like the characters quite a bit, I think that would be a fun way to go from now on for maybe the next few games if we just hit random.
I've done that recently, but what I found is if I wait a spell and let everyone else pick theirs, I kind of try and complement their choice somehow to give me an advantage if I can't. Like
Kind
last time,
words.
everyone went stabby. Not that compliment. I'm not that nice. Everyone went stabby, so I went Old Faithful Gore to like. I went through the spell deck so much. No one else was using it, so I bulked up on Spirit. It's good fun.
Interesting. Well, with the long weekend coming up, maybe we can squeeze in some games of that. That would be cool. And
All the games.
twist a certain someone's arm to try it out for the first time. What do you think?
Yes, Christian, it's so good.
I failed my
It's a good
homework.
game,
I was
man.
supposed to play it I think last
That's
week.
all right. It's like indefinite homework.
Yeah.
You can
I'll
report
get,
back
I'll
next
get
week.
around to it for sure.
I mean, at least fortunately, it's one of those games that's not just going to run hot for a month and then we'll move on to something else. This is something that has been repeatedly coming up
Oh,
for
yeah.
years now. So,
Years.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Keeps on giving.
stuck.
yeah.
We'll play it forever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to touch back on something that we've alluded to a little bit over the last few weeks as far as game grabbing our attention goes, and probably more me and Jam for this sake. So, as per promised, or I don't know if we actually promised, but I certainly promised myself, picked up Sims 4 during the week. I took that big Sim syringe and stuck it in the arm and plunged it in, and off we go to the races. So... I haven't played Sims since Sims 2, so this was definitely a bit of a nostalgia trip for me. And honestly, I actually remembered back to when I last played a Sims game, and Christian, you may actually recall this because I'm pretty sure I talked about it way back. So, inside fact for anyone who listens to the show, and we haven't mentioned this yet because I don't think we have. Christian and I, a long time ago, used to work together, sort of back in retail land.
I mentioned it on the very first podcast I was on, but that was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
that's right. All right, cool. I couldn't remember if we mentioned it or not, but the way back then was around the era that I did play Sims 2, and one of the houses that I created back in that era was basically all of the people that we worked with in those teams.
I don't remember this at all.
And I'm pretty sure I actually had a Sim version of myself and Christian and a whole bunch of other people in that
wow.
He
house.
never
So
told you.
I
wonder what they're
I
up to
actually
now.
don't remember how many people I
Digital
included.
dollhouse.
So yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, it's slightly safer than a voodoo doll anyway. But yeah, so I sort of included you guys in some of the happy snaps of the characters that I created. So we've got the 4 of us plus Mimo at the moment, sort of occupying the party share house. Things are going reasonably well. I started us all off as teens so that we had a bit of time to sort of acclimatise to the environment before sort of
That's
picking
why
up
we look
adults.
so weird.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
your
I'm
character
pretty
just
sure
looks
you've got a-
weird, just
Yeah,
straight
you've got a
up.
female model face. I don't know what happened there.
well,
Because I'm so fabulous.
that and I deliberately didn't spend too long on everybody's appearances because it would have
Like
been
Glee
like
story.
6-7 hours worth before I even started to play the game. So
That's the point of Sims, Luke. You're playing it wrong.
no, I'm not playing it wrong.
I'm kidding.
Fun is wrong.
But anyway, so highlights so far from our teenage years. Jam, you did really friggin' well at school, so congratulations.
Yeah.
You were a straight A student
Duh.
pretty much the whole way through.
Nerd.
Of course.
Yep, that's it.
Nerd.
Reflects life.
Well, speaking of reflecting life, the toilet in our house was broken no less than 5 times by you, Jam. So congratulations.
What can I say?
Wow.
High fiber diet?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
It was really concerning, and for some reason, Mimo and I always got stuck cleaning up the shit. So
I feel
was
so
not
bad
good.
for Image.
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize to her and she'll be very confused.
well, at Mimo's suggestion, I actually included one of her traits as I can't remember if it's clean freak or neat or something like that. But basically, what
Yeah.
it does in terms of game mechanics is it actually gives her a boost to her happiness when she's cleaning up messes. So I'm really super glad that we put one of those in the house because that's worked a treat. So. We basically have like a live-in maid that enjoys doing everything and doesn't get like fed up with it. So that's actually really convenient. So yeah, which is cool. But what else has been going on? Ollie, you've been cranking the fitness stats. So going on regular
Hooray.
jogs and doing all sorts of stuff like that, which is quite convenient for me because when you're out of the house jogging around, I don't need to control shit. So yeah, good job. It's good. Yeah, and nobody's died yet, which kind of surprised me. We
Nice.
had one oven fire, which I think was Mimo trying to cook
Saddle.
some tacos or something. And a few of us wigged out over it and got all stressed for a few days, but nobody cucked it yet. So I'm going to consider that a win because controlling one sim in The Sims is, a bit of work when you're sort of relearning the game, but 5 at once, it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm actually quite happy with how things went. So
Is
yeah.
anyone married yet?
No, way too early in the game for that. There was a bit of a romance that kicked off between Ollie and Mimo, but I put a stop to that
Oh.
Oh
immediately.
God,
Cold showers for
that would
both
be
of
a
you.
disaster.
Yep.
Yep.
Everyone else in the house is going, no.
Nope.
No, so
you have pets? Can you
I've
have
tried
pets in that
to.
game?
Yeah, you can actually. I was gonna introduce a pupper to put Ollie's dog Noodle in the house as well. The only reason I haven't yet is just because I'm still trying to get the hang of controlling so many things at once, and I thought that might be overdoing it a little bit. So, because the last thing I want on my conscience is a sim dog sort of dying in the house before I've even got everyone to adulthood.
Oh, it'd be brutal.
You send a screenshot and Ollie goes, why does that say Noodle the Fourth? I don't understand.
Also, why is there a 3 next to my name?
No, it's a good time.
Well,
So,
I tried to
yeah.
I tried to dive into because the second you shared that you were installing it, I was like, I must have it. But I had trouble with the Origin platform.
Yeah.
It was a bit crap. It wouldn't verify my credit card. Tried a handful of times and then discovered later in the day that it locked my credit card down. The fraud department at my bank went, this is a bit sus. Someone's repeatedly trying to verify. Yeah.
This is your bank
That was a
calling.
bit
Apparently, someone's trying to charge 5,000 simoleons to your account.
So like EA Origins, yeah, that's the one. Yep, yep. It only took a minute to unlock once I called them up, but it's a bit concerning because I visited the forums and there were just years worth of complaints about the platform not accepting credit cards, no matter what people did, and it's just a bit bizarre. So I think I'm gonna not buy electronically. Yeah,
Madness.
I might go to a brick and mortar. Got some leftover JB Hi-Fi
that's
vouchers from
outside.
Christmas. I'll go use them
Yeah.
and get the discs and just register the code on the platform because I'm a bit hesitant to put my credit card details back in there now.
I wonder whether the bank, sort of, especially after all the shenanigans last year, just saw the name EA and just thought that you were getting ripped off. It's entirely possible.
Wow.
No.
But I'm a bit sad.
Yeah, it was annoying.
I want to play so bad. I see the screenshots and I'm like,
like I said to you, I tried to help you out and actually purchase a copy and gift it to you, but I got
Thank
locked
you.
out as well, and it didn't even let me. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for all of the issues and weirdness, you would think that the one thing they would code properly is their, revenue stream developing platform thingy. Mm-hmm. Like, why won't you take my money? I'm trying to give you my money.
yeah.
But anyway, I will still acquire it because I love The Sims. I'm just so fed up with Origin as a platform.
Well, if you want, when you actually do manage to get on there, I think I can actually save our household as a template, and you can import it and muck around with it like that. So
Alternate
Then we
timelines.
can compare notes down the track.
yeah, I think it works like that. I'm not 100% sure if I can save progress on it. It might just be the character models, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Give it a go. That could be
That
worth
would be
checking out.
hilarious, actually.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, one of the things I'm really enjoying is sort of reading up and watching YouTube videos and stuff on the game, because there's, it's similar to when you look around at stuff that people have done in Minecraft. There's a huge amount of creativity out there that's just like absolutely
Yeah.
jaw-dropping in the detail and
You
work
see
people
them
put in.
recreating famous people.
Yeah.
They go to so much trouble just to get every little curve of the jawbone right. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, it is absolutely cool. I think that maybe one of the goals I'm going to set for this run through of the game is to get us all to like sort of progress through our lifespans and maybe all die and have all of us as ghosts haunting the same house. I think that'd be a cool place to be.
Jesus.
We have to choose someone to haunt in particular.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah, maybe we'll work out who the lucky someone is during the course of the play. That'd be a good thing to do.
Just the sole survivor.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense. That really
Whoever's
makes
left
sense.
alive.
Yeah. Well, you can actually bring Sims back to life in this game. Like, there's a thing you can make called ambrosia, which is kind of like it's not like a fountain of youth thing. It's kind of like a resurrection potion, from what I understand.
But in order to do of the gods.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the one. But you actually need to have like massively advanced skills in cooking and gourmet and gardening and all sorts of shit. So it's a pretty big objective to get there.
True.
So.
Resurrection does need cooking and gardening skills.
Yeah, or I could just buy the vampire add-on pack and turn everybody into undead. That could work too.
Or you
I mean,
could
that just sounds easier.
Yeah.
Log off without saving.
Sure. I could do it.
Heresy. You wash your mouth.
That's too easy. Undo.
Yeah. All right, well, what else is going on? Christian doing a bit of monster hunting I saw the other night.
Yeah,
How's that progressing?
Still progressing well. Still more content to see. Even I think I'm 120 hours in. And I
Holy
know
shit.
there's still stuff ahead of me. A lot of it's kind of variations on existing monsters or new like tools. Nothing, no big revelations left, I think, but enough carrots to keep me going. And it's still fun. Just the core gameplay is just still fun. So really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm only up to Nergigante and I'm still thoroughly enjoying it.
Nergigante. Fuck that guy.
I've got Nergigante hunting down to a fine art now.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yeah. No, I saw that you posted a picture on the Twitter yesterday, which was one of the most epic explosions I think I've ever seen in that game.
So satisfying. It was like killing Nergigante from sleep, because people don't know, normally when the monsters are at about 15% health, they'll run away and go to sleep, and then you like can put bombs around them and wake them up with an explosion, and then normally you have to continue fighting them a little more until you finish them off. But we'd weakened the monster so much before he went to sleep that by stacking bombs around him and waking him up with a giant bow shot, it actually killed him in the explosion. And yeah, made an awesome screenshot.
Yeah.
Glorious.
Wow. He also looks amazing. I'm just looking at pictures of him now. Holy crap.
Yeah,
He looks badass.
He's like a giant spiky wyvern is what he kind of looks like to me. So...
Well, I saw
Yeah.
an adorable thing that he actually has little toe beans underneath his paws. He's got little
Really?
yeah, it's adorable.
Oh, I'm looking this up.
I like how you say adorable when this guy can murder you in a heartbeat. That's super adorable. Yeah,
Oh, he
he's
does
painful.
too. Look at the little toe beans.
Very cute.
No, it for me, it's certainly the point of the game where I have hit a little bit of a wall with it. Like, I know I'm capable of beating it, but the decision now is, do I want to sink more time into fighting this thing where the payoff is not by any length guaranteed and I can come out of a fight with not much to show for it? Or do I want to put more time into sort of gathering stuff in the general game and maybe, expanding my armor sets and things like that? So, don't know.
We can talk more about hitting that wall in our main topic tonight.
Absolutely. It would be a good segue. So, all right, speaking of segues, should we chat a bit of news? There's a couple of things that have been going on this week. Yeah.
Oh,
I
he
had
had
a
a
cool
thing.
game. I had a new
sorry,
game.
that's right. My apologies, Ollie. You did play a new
Motherfucker.
game. Yeah.
Ooh.
My bad.
It wasn't Wolfenstein either.
No.
Wolfenstein.
Let's
My
talk
bad
about
on
that.
that.
So tell us about, what is it, Trailmakers that you played?
Yeah, I played a game called Trailmakers. Ow, that was my elbow. I got very excited and waved my arms. Jesus, that actually really hurt. I played a game called Trailmakers at a mate's place, and it's really cool. So I bought it for myself as well, and I haven't played it since that. But it's essentially, imagine interactive Lego with physics
Sold.
on
Aw.
your computer.
Sold.
And so you have you can build various bits and pieces together, and you'll have engine blocks and tire blocks and wheel blocks and all these sort of different hinge blocks and all sorts of bits and contraptions, and you can basically make whatever vehicle you like, but it follows real world physics and it applies to that. So if you go, I make this thing, it's too heavy, it just doesn't fly. So, or you go, I have all these power and my car does a flip because there's no downforce on the front or anything like that.
Sounds kind of Kerbal space programmy.
It is a little bit, yeah. Imagine, Kerbal Space Program meets Lego is actually not a bad way of putting it.
Nice.
And it's just fun, being what can I build? Doop-a-doop-a-doop. Let's try this, or let's have a race. And so me and my mate built cars and whatnot, and we raced it around the island. It was good fun. I highly recommend we all check it out at some point and do like wacky challenges and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be really cool.
Looking at the trailer video for it, it actually looks really similar to a game that Jam and I played a little while back called Scrap Mechanic, but
Potentially.
perhaps with a lot more physics detail around movement, because there's some pretty fast-moving vehicles here from the look of it. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, she gets fast.
yeah, that's cool. That does look good.
I recommend it for everyone who likes building things.
Yeah.
Let's scratch that itch.
I was very tempted to scratch that itch with Lego Worlds the other day, actually, because my kids picked that up for Christmas, and our friend Simo let me know that apparently all of the Lego sets that are coming out from this point onwards, actually, if you put the codes for them into the game, you can actually import them into the game. So
good.
yeah, I'm just like, wow, every Lego set from this point onwards that's coming out, holy shit, that's like a infinitely expandable game. That sounds crazy interesting. So,
I mean, it's limited by money, right?
sure. Well, actually, in theory, not.
Infinitely.
People would be sharing those codes online, I assume, if they're not unique. So
Might be unique.
they might be, actually.
That would be a job and a half, though.
But there would be a
That's
lot
the
of people
random
buying
generator.
those Lego sets that don't own the game, I'm sure. So, because the number of
True.
people who build Lego would far outweigh the number of people who play Lego Worlds. So, I don't know. That's
True.
an interesting question. I'll have to do some research on
We'll
that.
find out.
All right. Well, anyway, let's properly segue now that we've talked through all our games. Well, have I missed
That's
anything? I think
right.
we're
No, I
good.
think that's it.
All right, cool. So Dice Awards happened during the week. So the Dice Awards, Christian, help me out here because I've fuzzed on the acronym. Dice stands for
I don't know the acronym. Sorry.
Developers Interactive. I don't know. Someone look it up while I'm talking. So another basically opportunity for a lot of the games devs out there to talk about games that have had outstanding achievements throughout the last calendar year. And it turns out that Nintendo won big at Dice Awards this year, so they picked up no less than, I think it was like 5 or 6 awards. So they picked up Game of the Year for Breath of the Wild. There was a whole bunch of stuff for the Switch and Wii U getting recognition. Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS last year got Handheld Game of the Year. Mobile Game of the Year actually got given to Fire Emblem Heroes. And Mario Odyssey got a whole bunch of attention too. Other notable winners, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds won Outstanding Achievement in Online Gameplay and Action Game of the Year, which I think it's still doing extremely well, even heading into 2018 now. Cuphead, Horizon Zero Dawn also won some Technical Achievement and Story Awards, which is interesting. So, yeah.
But
there you
most
go.
importantly, Nier Automata won Role Playing Game of the Year.
Hey.
So, between that and Persona 5, Christian, which you played both of last year, would you still give it to Nier? Is that something you...
I would. I think it's very, very close to me, but I would still give it to Nier personally. But I can see the argument for both, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Now, another really interesting thing with the Dice Awards, which I highly recommend people go and check out, is Phil Spencer Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, gave a really passionate speech about inclusivity in gaming and dealing with the toxic gamer culture that's out there. For a guy who's been in the industry for as long as he has, to actually step up and take a stand against some of these issues, which are still, pervasive even in today's day and age, and they totally shouldn't be. It was a really rousing speech and a great listen. So if you want to do yourself a favour, go and listen to that because it'll be popping up on YouTube all over the place, I'm sure. So did a fantastic job, and it was really good to see and listen to. So there you go.
And as far as I can tell for DICE, I think it's design, innovate, communicate, entertain.
That sounds about right.
Cool.
Let's go with that. Cool. Christian, what the heck is going on with Rome?
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to talk about... So Rome 2 Total War was a game that came out in 2013. It was quite an old game. But they just recently, Creative Assembly have announced a new expansion with 4 African kingdoms in it. But the thing I want to talk about most was actually a free DLC that they're adding called Female Leaders Update, where they're adding historically significant female characters to all the campaigns and all the factions. So they're adding the ability to have female leaders for appropriate factions based on their sort of historical accuracy. And they are also they're giving marriages more realistic political implications, and faction leaders of opposite genders can marry as a diplomatic action. And they are adding a new event type to the game, which represents things happening in sort of the women behind the scenes. They say behind every great man, there's an even greater woman or whatever. So yeah, they're adding like special events to represent that sort of thing too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Time for me to
is
reinstall because I liked that game.
Oh, I love that game so much.
Was it, Luke, was it the very first PAX Australia where they had a booth that was like draped from the ceiling with red velvet, like surrounded?
I think
People
so.
could go in for the adults only sort of preview.
There was, if I remember
It's a
correctly,
pretty-
there was a little bit of
Yeah,
controversy around the scantily clad nature of some of the women dressed as
That
Roman
wasn't their
legionnaires.
booth.
That doesn't sound like Rome.
No,
Yeah,
maybe
no.
not. Okay,
That wasn't theirs, but it stood out because in an expo hall where most things only went so high, the curtains hung from the very ceiling. And you could see it anywhere you were on the expo hall. You could just see these red curtains. It was like, woo, what secrets are in there? It was pretty cool.
What mysteries?
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing to think timeline-wise, back to then, that probably was the first PAX that we went to. God, that's a while ago now. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was always
one in Australia.
a Rome 1 Total War player. Like, I love that game. Rome 2 didn't quite scratch the itch the same way for me, but
Rome 1, probably one of my most played games ever. And I was obsessed with, there's a Rome Total Realism mod that like changed some of the units and the color grading of the game and made it more sort of realistic. And as a fan of like Roman history and ancient history, I just played that game for hundreds of hours. It's so cool.
yeah. Isn't it great, like, how much love some of these, grand strategy games have been getting this year already, this far? Because we just got finished talking about the big Stellaris updates last week, and now we've got stuff happening for Rome, and Civ 6 has just had its expansion, and
Tomb Kings are coming out for Warhammer Total War 2.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Tomb Kings.
Still a genre that's getting a lot of love, which is really good to see. So, yeah. But speaking of genres that refuse to die...
Yeah, something that's not getting a lot of love, perhaps. So Metal Gear Survive came out this week, just gone, which is the first post-Kojima Metal Gear game. And it has done abysmally at the UK sales charts, and I think that probably represents the global sales too. It shifted 85% fewer copies than Revengeance, which is the other Metal Gear
Such a
spin-off.
stupid word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just abysmal sales, and it's listed at like 65th place on Steam a couple of days after launch. It's not a good sign. And so I think it's kind of telling that people don't seem to be responding well to Konami's post-Kojima strategy for Metal Gear.
I actually wonder how much of the sales sort of slump for this game is attributed to that, because thinking about it strategically, like, there's a lot of people who are plugged into the industry, like the core gamer types like us, who are aware of that whole controversy and what went on, and the fact that Konami have been, pretty shitty about the whole situation. But for the general layperson out there who won't know anything about that, like, I tend to think that maybe a much bigger part of the issue is that they just didn't really promote this game a lot at all. Like, you didn't see heaps about it at all.
That's definitely, I think, part of it. But I do think that Metal Gear Solid, of all game franchises, is one that tended to attract more sort of loyal fans. So by the time you get to Metal Gear Solid 5, I think that it was a large proportion of the player base of Metal Gear Solid 5 were people who would have some awareness of the history of the franchise.
Yeah.
So
Wouldn't surprise me. Metal Gear Solid 5's just awesome game. I was about to say solid game, but then I stopped myself. So yeah, and the Fox engine, it makes sense for them to try and get a bit more mileage out of that game engine because it was incredibly good. But
yeah.
I mean, it makes me sad that it's like this. It really does. Crystal-headed zombies. What the fuck? This is not Metal Gear.
No, it's just such a for a franchise that already had weird tonal shifts. This is just one weird tonal shift in the wrong direction, and it's just not good.
Yeah.
Give me back my cyborg ninjas.
That's right. There seems to be at least, a small dedicated pocket of players out there who have been giving the game a bit of positive attention, but it does seem to be the minority for sure. But
and small dedicated developers within the team still. I don't know if you saw that there was like a in-game note that if you take the first letter from each sentence, it spells KGP Forever, which is like Kojima Productions Forever.
Yeah.
So it's some insider developer leaving a little loyalty signal for Kojima Productions.
Yep. I'm a little sad that it didn't say fuck Konami. That would have been good, but no, it's
Might be a little
understandable.
blatant.
That's true.
Yep.
Someone would actually lose their job over that. For sure. Yeah. Well, the other big bit of news which popped today, actually, I see what I did there.
Boo.
ReadPop, the company behind a large number of games-related conventions globally these days, who I believe their first convention was Comic-Con New York, going back a number of years ago now, in 2006. So that event sold out, and they've been going from strength to strength, and they run pretty much all of the PAX events now, from what I understand. They certainly run all of the PAX events in Australia, and handle a whole bunch of the Comic-Cons or PAX events in Australia. The PAX event in Australia, I should say.
Say there's so many of them.
Yeah, that's it. Well, they did talk a couple of years ago about doing other state ones, but we'll see. But yeah, no, they handle a whole bunch of events globally. We've talked to a couple of guys who happen to work for ReadPop, so in the form of Guy Jug Blomberg and Luke Lancaster, who've both been on our show before, chatting about their role with PAX Oz, and Jug now, of course, is the global PAX content manager. But ReadPop announced this morning have actually acquired the Gamer Network, which is home to the likes of Rock Paper Shotgun, GamesIndustry.biz, EGX, Eurogamer, some pretty big names in there. So they're basically creating like a giant, like mega structure of media in gaming. So there's a huge number of influential websites and community groups that make up that brand. So, and that acquisition is taking effect immediately. So we'll have to see in the coming months what that actually means in terms of content and events and other stuff for people like us. But yeah,
it's a pretty massive deal.
It is, absolutely, and well timed too. Like Gamer Network's actually just about to unveil a new massive corporate headquarters in Brighton next week, which is like a 11,000 square foot building. So.
Fancy.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're building some stuff at the moment. So, yeah, more games events in Oz for us would be great, but more online content would also be equally cool. I'm very curious to see whether this is going to have a tie into some more of the organised play stuff around sort of Australian esports and things like that, or whether they're going to stick to what they know. But I suspect they're going to diversify quite a bit more than what we've seen. So, yeah. Anyway, that all aside, let's talk about tonight's main topic by throwing it to Christian. Go for it.
So the main topic for tonight, I wanted to chat to you guys about the sort of philosophical thing about game difficulty versus accessibility. So what I mean by this is there are some gamers and game developers who argue that all games should, or nearly all games should, endeavor to make their game playable to everybody, regardless of skill level or like prior experience. And there are some others who say that if there's an intended experience by the developer, if difficulty is part of the design philosophy, or if the mechanics of the game just require a certain physical skill level in actually performing the inputs, then that's okay. And that it's okay to make games that are difficult, and that's part of the tapestry of gaming. And I'm just interested in your thoughts. So some examples of games that I'm talking about that emphasize difficulty. One is definitely fighting games, and that's when I'm talking about inputs. So fighting games have quite technical like executions of the moves, and in order to play competitively, you have to be quite dexterous, and that's something that's difficult to scale, because if you're playing other people online, then having like an easy mode where people can enter those inputs in a different fashion kind of messes with the game philosophy a little bit.
Yeah. That would imbalance it greatly.
Yeah, create a great imbalance. So, but then there are people like even me, I would love to play more fighting games, but I find that they are quite difficult and there's quite a barrier for me. So I'd like there to be fighting games that I feel more confident in playing with my skill level, but it is a very tricky thing to design.
In terms of that genre, I think it's interesting that we've probably seen a little bit more of an emergence of narrative fighting games as of late, like the Injustice series being a good one, where there seems to be a lot more of a focus on the story of that campaign rather than just the fighting against other human players element. So
yeah, I'd say that. Some of the Mortal Kombat games, both they were all by the same developer whose name I forget. Warner Brothers Interactive, yeah. And yeah, but I mean, multiplayer has always been at the core of fighting games, I think. There was one fighting game that was released a couple of years back, which was actually cancelled in production, but they put out a beta, and instead of having to put inputs for your moves, they were on cooldown. And that was designed to, I wish I could remember the name, that was designed to make it more accessible to people, where you had a cooldown system like in an MMO instead of having to put in like quarter circle back or whatever. I thought that was an interesting way of approaching that.
So it turns into a bit of a resource management sort of struggle as opposed to just...
Yeah, resource management. And there's still positioning and art in that and playing footsies and things like that, but the actual moves is taken care of with the cooldowns. But fighting games is just one part of what we're talking about. So even just games like Cuphead was a big one last year, Ori and the Blind Forest, notoriously difficult, and then the Souls game is like the parent of the difficult games family.
Yeah.
And I know, like, Ollie, you're a fan of Souls games, is that right?
I am.
How would you feel if there was an easy mode in a Souls game?
I would shrug and be like, cool.
Yep.
Like, it wouldn't affect me. I wouldn't be like personally insulted that they dare besmirch my Dark Souls games.
Yep.
Because everyone plays differently. Like, I can't remember which game it was, but the way they explained the difficulty in the game was they went, the air quotes easy mode is the narrative one. So if you're just looking for the story and you occasionally want to shoot the odd bad guy and it's not too much of a struggle. Was it Mass Effect?
Mass Effect had
3.
that. Also, Uncharted had that, and the Assassin's Creed Origins had that too. They have the tourist mode.
Yeah, I preferred that approach rather than say like an easy mode, like, because some games you do play for the story, and other games you go, yeah, I play this for the gameplay. Obviously, both are quite nice when you have them, but for Mass Effect, I'd be like, I'll play the medium difficulty because, I don't need it to be super duper challenging. I'm more into it for the story. That being said, I like a little bit of challenge. Otherwise, I would just watch a video on YouTube if I just wanted to experience the narrative.
Yeah.
Does Dark Souls have enough narrative?
That's what I kind of think about with Dark Souls. Is that there's not a really lot there besides the atmosphere and the difficulty. Like, there's a lot of atmosphere in those games, but there's not a lot of narrative.
But it's the reveals of the creatures as well that's part of the narrative, isn't it? Like, it's not just about story beats on screen where you're having conversations and interacting with other characters. It's also the things that you visually get treated to, like the spectacle of the creatures that you're dealing with as part of it. So,
yeah, definitely. But it's less direct storytelling. It's more just you pick up what's happening by the creatures and by the environment and like the little bits and pieces around the place, not someone going, and now for this dramatic twist of events. It's nothing like that.
And is that spectacle enhanced by the fact that it's extraordinarily difficult to get to that point?
See, for me, it's the matter of, and again, this basically comes down to accessibility, of, yeah, you go, oh my god, this bad guy, he's at the end of this long tunnel, which must mean he's an utter badass. Which is great. Like, it's good to have that feeling of, oh shit, like, this guy's a badass because he was at the end of this corridor full of horrible things. Versus if you just waltz through and go, oh, hey, it's a guy. Hey, guy, you're pretty big. Taking up most of that room there. It's nice. Yeah. I see what you're doing there.
I'm all for having an easy mode in gameplay. I think it makes sense for a lot of people when it's a single-player type game. It's when it gets to multiplayer or it has some sort of crossover with multiplayer that I get concerned because I worry about how that might affect, advantage.
Yeah, like aim assist and things like that in shooters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about a game like Super Meat Boy, like a Twitch platformer? That's a game where, because there's no sort of health system, you just one-hit kill. What's an easy mode look like for, say, Super Meat Boy?
That would probably be the introduction of lives or something.
I think you've got unlimited lives in Super Meat Boy, I think.
Or like the ability to take 2 hits.
More checkpoints.
Yeah.
The ability to take 2 hits, that's possible, but I think you tend to. There's a lot of like impossible places to get back from when you fall in that game. But
the difficulty is, it's nice. It's nice when the game has something to it that allows it to be enjoyed without the difficulty, whether it's an exploration factor or a narrative or something like that. There's something that lends itself to not needing the difficulty in order for the enjoyment. But some games are just built to be difficult. Their purpose is to be challenging. It's what the devs wanted.
In that question of what the devs wanted, do you think that matters, or are we at a point now in gaming? Yeah. Because I think there are some people who would say, I buy the game, I want to play it how I want to play it, I've paid money for it. But
so return it and get your money back.
And
honestly,
that's how I see personally, but I think there are people who argue the other side. Yeah.
I understand.
Put it this way.
Yeah.
I was going to say, imagine if it was a book or a movie, and you're like, I want a thought-provoking thing. I watched The Fast and the Furious.
I want this to be a 20-minute movie, not an hour and a half.
Yeah, can I have
These words are too hard. I want easier words.
Yeah. Can I have a different lead actor?
Can you please
That'd be great.
explain this plot to me in intricate detail, because I need my hand held through this
there's little
incredible
plot
twist.
synopsises at the bottom of complicated scenes.
It just doesn't work in some circumstances. I wholeheartedly support the inclusion of easy modes when the devs want to make it. I think in expansive, huge games, it's a fantastic place when you've got a good story or you've got an amazing world to explore to introduce that, because then you're going to reach more people. And the problem is, for an individual gamer, it's all about the resources you have versus what you want out of the game. And that can work in either direction. You can be time poor or time rich. You can have money or no money. So being able to enjoy based on your resources makes sense. Or it could be by choice. You could want that challenge and that difficulty.
Yeah.
Even if it's going to like bleed you dry, that's what drives you, and that's what you feel that sense of accomplishment for. Or you're the person who doesn't give a damn about the monsters. You just want to go and explore every inch of that wasteland until you found every bullet, because you love finding the nooks and crannies and discovering secrets and possibly stumbling across something very few other gamers will have seen. Or you just want to know who your character hooks up with. Like, that might be the only thing driving you. And it's important to, find the games that you enjoy, but that doesn't obligate the devs to modify their game specifically to your needs or wants.
So, Luke, you've recently, as we talked about at the top of the show, you've been bashing your head against Nergigante and Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Would you like the option just to flick the difficulty of that fight down to get past Nergigante?
Nah.
No?
Nah.
And why?
So, to explain my position, I'm not pro easy mode, but I'm also not pro difficulty modes only either. I'm 100% pro creators' intention. So creators' vision is by far the most important thing to me when it comes to playing any sort of game and sort of, going through that game experience. To the extent that, like, I mean, we talked about this, I think it was last week when I was going through my playthrough of Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. So whenever I attack games like that, like even if I'm warned that, look, for Wolfenstein, this is actually a really, really good example, because the most important part of that game to me is the story, okay? The character interactions and the story and the narrative part by far outweigh everything else. Like, I enjoy the gameplay, but it's not as important to me as those other things. But I didn't play it at a lower difficulty setting, even though our friend Matt sort of recommended that as a good way to whiz through and sort of get to the story, because the game can be quite difficult. Because I actually wanted to experience the game, in its creators' sort of intended state, as far as the interactions between the combat sort of elements of the game and the difficulty level and the amount of challenge that it presented. And I feel that a lot of the time with games that are sort of tweaked up or tweaked down for different difficulty options, some of them are done really well, but some of them are not done particularly well when it comes to tweaking those settings. And there's far too many games, in my experience, out there where tweaking those difficulty settings comes as a bit of an afterthought to the expense of the way that the game works best, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they just like change around a few values. They got more enemies have more health now, but that can make for a worse game experience if they're just more bullet sponges, but the gameplay is not more satisfying.
Exactly,
or vice versa. Yeah.
And I can think of a bunch of different games that would absolutely be worse off from including like an easier or a difficulty sort of bump in either direction. And one that I can think of off the top of my head is actually The Witness. So The Witness being a very hardcore sort of puzzle style game. For me, tweaking a difficulty setting on a game like that is almost the equivalent of going and reading cheats on how to solve different puzzles within the game. Now, people can go and do that if they want to, but like, I truly think that people who do that are cheating themselves of the experience. Like, why would you even want to play a challenging puzzle game like that?
Yeah.
Because you're certainly not doing it for the story, because it's not really a narrative-heavy game. The whole point of the game is challenging yourself with those puzzles. So, you're kind of removing the whole point of playing the game if you circumvent that. And I just don't see how the creator's vision could be honoured by making those easier or giving you too many clues, sort of thing. But there are games that are designed to be a bit easier in parts, depending on how you want to play them. Like Cuphead actually does have a few ways that you can make the game easier when you play. And in fact, you can even play through all of the boss fights on an easy setting, but you can't get through to the very end of the game. Like, that's a reward sort of reserved for people who actually want to, play through the creator's vision in terms of the default difficulty setting. But it even goes a step further, and if you want to challenge yourself even more, there's like a hidden thing you can do in the game that actually unlocks some stuff for you, which I won't reveal too much about what it is because it's a bit of a surprise for anyone who wants to go hunting for it, but it gives you a whole other way to play that game if you go to the effort of unlocking it, and that's almost like a hard difficulty setting that's not just a tweaked setting. It's like an additional challenge that you can set yourself. And that's kind of like how, Xbox and PlayStation have their trophy and achievement sort of infrastructure too. So sometimes you can play through those games like normally how you want, but if you really want to go the extra mile, there's additional objectives that can increase the difficulty of that game or the length of time you need to put into it to achieve them without fucking with the core of the game, if that makes sense. So, I think having extra challenges is good.
That what you're talking about with Cuphead, that reminds me of the games by Platinum Games, like Bayonetta and Revengeance, for example, where they have a scoring system after every fight from like D, C, B, and then like S is the top score. And in the game, there are consumable items you can eat that you can use that will give you like an attack boost or make you invulnerable for a period of time. But if you use any of those items, then it's impossible to get a high score on each fight.
Yeah.
And so it's basically the developers saying, we're putting these in the game, but if you use them, you're like, we're not gonna give you props, basically. But they're there to help people get through the game if you want. And there are some people who say, take them out the game. Why do you give me the option of using these items if you're going to punish me for using them? But then there's the other side.
Self-control.
Self-control. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who said that?
I think it's definitely games as well that the level of difficulty they have is designed to provoke an emotional response from the player. And like Dark Souls is probably a good example of that because it's supposed to give you this feeling of like hopelessness and dread, playing through those games because of how hard they are.
Well, both Demon
matches the
Souls and
atmosphere.
Dark Souls have like impossible fights, basically. The first things they throw you into, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose.
Yeah. Ori and the Blind Forest is another good example. Like there's one sort of level in that game where you're trying to escape from like basically something that is being destroyed around you, and you're basically running away from the environment, essentially like self-destructing as you go, and it would not convey the same sense of panic and like need to just get the fuck out of there as quickly as you possibly can if the game setting was tweaked to be a lot easier. Like it's supposed to terrify you. That's actually something it does extremely well when you're going through that sequence. So yeah, I think there's always a cost that can be easily forgotten when some people just say, oh, it's okay, just whack an easy mode in, it'll please a small subsection of players, and then you've ticked that box. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not about that at all. There's much cleverer ways to do that. One really clever way that impressed me recently actually was playing through Celeste. So you guys remember that platformer that I spoke about a couple of months ago? So that came out a whole bunch of different platforms. And one thing they did during that game, which I've not really seen this done as well as this before, they actually included an assist mode in Celeste. And what it was is it was basically a group of toggleable sort of game difficulty, like mutators, if you like, that you could turn on or off to your liking, and it would change the level of difficulty in that game. So, for example, you could extend the air dash that you have. You could slow the game down in sort of 10% intervals. You can actually like toggle the game speed, and you can actually do like periods of invincibility as well, or you can do a combination of those things. So that gives you a good granular way to sort of tweak maybe the one thing that you're really struggling with, as opposed to just like haphazardly turning every difficulty option down. So, not painting a broad brush. It's just, just that one thing that you think would improve your personal gameplay experience. I think it's good that they broke it down into that granular sort of style. So,
Yeah, that's kind of like sort of mini cheats, just tiny little cheats that you're allowed to use, but just just to give you that edge.
Remind me a little bit of some of the shooters of old, where you actually had to type in the text cheats. Because everyone can remember back to the old days of Doom God Mode and and that sort of stuff. But there are a whole bunch of different
Sims,
cheats.
just like unlimited cash in The Sims, just to have fun, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have actually resisted the urge to use those because I found out all about them when I started playing. So I was just like, yeah. And honestly, if creating cool-looking houses was the biggest focus for me in that game, then maybe I would type in a whole bunch of cash cheats to get there. But
I've done that with every Sims. I've had a city that was my cheat city because it was all for design, and I've had my city that was, no, you are going to busk in the gutter for your lunch money if you need to.
Busk in the gutter.
It's because sometimes all I want to do is sit there and design a house for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, honestly. But it's important to have that option in a lot of games where there's a creative element too. Like in Minecraft, you've got difficulty settings for survival, but then you've got creative mode, which is a whole other kind of easy mode because people choose how they want to play it. They have their own goals, and a game that's about creating recognizes that, and it works. It makes complete sense. And you've also appealing to a variety of different age types with that, so you don't want to exclude it to super skilled, experienced players necessarily. They want it to be accessible for young and old in a variety of different ways. So it makes sense. They're creating a more accessible game that people can basically use however they want to, and people are coming up with extraordinary things in Minecraft, as everyone knows, because of that complete freedom to play it how you want to.
Yeah, that's like appropriate to the design philosophy of that game. Whereas some other games, that's not really appropriate to the genre or the intention of the designer. And I think that's we all seem to be saying that it's okay if the designer says, no, look, this is the intended sort of feel of the game. This is the intended gameplay loop. You're supposed to die and then have another try and get better. But then it's okay to have fully open creative games where they're accessible to everybody, and there's room for all of those.
Yeah, I think with a lot of games, it's about enjoying the journey, not just the destination. So that's what really matters the most.
Interestingly, I mentioned this topic to my sister, and when I mentioned difficulty, the first thing that popped into her head was when she tries a difficult game for the first time, and she enters this complex tutorial mode. Where she has to learn a bunch of stuff at once. That turns her off.
Yeah, I guess that's
she's
another
time poor and she doesn't want to engage her brain to that level before she's even had a chance to get an understanding of the game.
That kind of reminds me back to the fighting games of like technical like complexity versus the like enemy difficulty. Like how much do you have to learn about the game as part of the difficulty, as opposed to how good are your reflexes and your hand-eye coordination, that sort of thing. There are a lot of like complex RPGs that can turn people off because they're difficult to learn how to play them, but actually the execution of playing them is not very difficult, but it's that learning that's tricky.
You mean
and
like Monster
some
Hunter,
people
potentially?
thrive.
Monster Hunter, yeah.
Some people thrive on that. Some people, all they want to do is understand the formula behind every single item, like speedrunners. They literally want to achieve the most efficient means of getting through. That's their drive. They want to know the machine of the game, every single mechanic, to the nth degree, to the point where they can skim off a few seconds.
Yeah.
In
Or
a
MOBA
fight.
players.
Yeah.
I've seen some crazy Monster Hunter speedruns. People doing Nergigante in under 2 minutes.
Holy
Oh
shit!
God.
Yeah.
I haven't even attempted it yet, and that just. Ugh.
Yeah.
But it's like you say, Jam. It's like they want to squeeze everything they can out of the game, and they want to be able to take it apart in their mind and put it back together again and know how it works. And yeah, it's really interesting.
Why you play combined with your resources. That's what's determining how you want to enjoy any particular game. And it's wonderful that there's choice in so many circumstances. In no way do I think devs are obligated. I prefer games that have a challenge without being extraordinarily difficult like Dark Souls, but I also hate having my hand held.
Yeah.
When I get into an unskippable tutorial where they're telling me every minute detail that as an experienced gamer is blatantly obvious to me, I get very frustrated. So
One thing I
I like
liked
the middle ground most of the time.
Destiny 2 did that actually quite well when they had the tutorial sort of thing for each class. And your ghost is just like, oh, it's more glowing ghost people talking. Okay. As you just run past, like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah.
skip.
I really like the Destiny 2 tutorial, actually. Like, because for me, this taps into the whole gaming difficulty versus accessibility argument. Like, accessibility doesn't always mean range of difficulty options. It often means, like, methods of instructing people how to play the game in a way that doesn't get in the way of, like, playing the game. Yeah.
Nice and subtle. And not breaking that suspension of disbelief. I don't want it to be so easy that I'm like, okay, great. So what's around the next corner? Because that was a big whoop. Or so difficult that I have to redo a fight in a really, like a story with a complex narrative. I have to redo a fight half a dozen times to get it right, which makes me completely just lose that connect with my main character because I've just watched them die 6 times, and it just rips me right out of it.
Yeah.
So balance.
When I think of like perfectly crafted tutorials, I think of Shigeru Miyamoto talking about the very first level in Mario Brothers and how the first thing the player sees is a Goomba. And if you walk into it, you die. So you learn, you jump on the Goomba. And then you get past that first one, you see a block. You hit the block, and a Goomba comes out of it. And then you try and jump to kill that Goomba like you've learnt already, but you hit the block above you, and then you get killed by the Goomba. And so it's just this, like, in this natural way.
It's organic,
You learn one lesson, and then you try and apply what you've learned, and then you get another stumbling block, and then you learn there, and then it goes on and on.
It's not a text box.
Yeah.
Warning you there's a Goomba ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Let's jump to kill this Goomba.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right.
I think for me personally, with the whole easy mode, hard mode thing, is that's very subjective as well. Like, what is easy for a speedrunner is not easy for me necessarily, and it will change between games. Like, some games I find incredibly easy, other games I'll find quite difficult and challenging. So how do you balance easy versus hard?
And because that can conflict with what we're saying about let the game designer set the difficulty. Because if the game designer says, I want my challenge to be like this, and you say, well, okay, that's not what it's like for me. For me, it's much harder than you want it to be, or it's much easier for me, then that kind of conflicts with just the let the game designer do what they want kind of attitude.
The onus is still on them to understand their target audience and tailor it in a way where it's, subtle enough and challenging enough to meet their expectations of how their key demographic is going to experience the game, which I do not envy them because it sounds difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it also essentially comes down to consumer education. Like, the consumer needs to know what sort of game they're looking for and not try to mix their expectations with the reality of the product.
Yes, that
You
too.
don't go out shoe shopping for some nice, dress shoes and expect them to be great runners. You don't go, this is going to be a great sneaker as well.
Yeah.
You're mixing your
Can't be
expectations
everything
with the
to
product.
everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's true that.
Genre
And
choice
so-
definitely leads into that as well. There's certain genres that you shouldn't expect to be an easy ride. Like, you're not going to be looking for an easy game and then go and pick the latest roguelike. That's just not what they're designed for. So
Yeah.
But
The good thing about roguelikes is that they're kind of designed that you get as far as you can get with your skill level, and if you're not very good at it, you'll get a little bit of the way through, but maybe you'll accomplish something. But if you're super good at the game, then there's, you can do one run that lasts half an hour. And it kind of, I think, works in that way of it can appeal to a broad range as long as it starts easy enough for everybody to achieve something, which it doesn't always.
Well, I think something that happens naturally over time too is that you don't have these genres that stay in their neat little sort of walled off buckets. Like, different elements of them tend to bleed through into other ones, and it's often because of that sort of audience that sort of desires a bit of a mix of both. Roguelikes are a good example of that, where there's been a bunch of roguelites, as they've sort of had the phrase coined in recent years, that sort of blur the edges a little bit of not being the traditional sort of completely unforgiving roguelike, but some of them have actually had mechanics that have allowed you to actually have a bit of progression throughout the game. One that brings to mind last year was the game Sundered. that I played, which was the one by Thunder Lotus Studios, makers of
platformer.
Jotun. Yeah, so the platformer, it was kind of, and Dead Cells was another one like this as well, actually, yeah, which is still in early access. So very much a roguelike style platformer, but there was a sort of a resource that you gained throughout playing that and each run that you did. And it was brutally difficult, but every time you died, you at least still kept a bit of that resource and got to put it towards upgrades that actually carried through for the rest of the game. The upgrades were very incremental. Like you didn't get any massive unlocks sort of each run. It took quite a while to actually build them up. But at least for people who kept on getting their ass kicked by this game, because there would be a lot of people out there who did, because it was very difficult, they at least had something to aspire to and something to work towards, and over time it would get better. And for people who actually were fine with that level of difficulty, one thing that they probably desired was not, having to pay the same amount of attention to the areas that they'd run repeatedly again and again and again. They wanted to get to new areas, so it sped up the run for them a little bit by sort of, decreasing the difficulty of some of the earlier zones and increasing the difficulty of the harder zones, which they were now traversing through to much more consistently because of the way the game naturally progressed. So I think it was a good way to build that up. It was still quite grindy, but honestly, people who were drawn to those sorts of games probably actually wanted that experience anyway, so that was a fine example.
Yep.
Another aspect of all of this, I don't know if, easy versus difficult is a bit icky when you've got a multiplayer competitive game. The game itself can't necessarily have an easy versus difficult mode, but I do appreciate it when they're very popular and very competitive, the devs popping in, rankings or different
tiers.
Modes to separate out the people who are taking it super serious from the ones who just want to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
In Overwatch, I was over competitive mode rather quickly, but I still love dropping in to muck around with my friends. I like winning too, but it's not the most important thing to me, and I don't want someone to go all batshit crazy because of a wrong move or whatever. So, yeah, that's another aspect, I think. It makes it accessible to a bunch of people who do want that online multiplayer experience, but just for different reasons.
Yep. Game that does that exceptionally well is, surprise, surprise, Hearthstone. Does a really, really good job of that.
It does very well.
Yeah.
And it's going to be even better next month when they relaunch how the ranked system works. But anyway, it's not the topic.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's good. Having different ways to play the same game, though, is often a fine way to approach that kind of thing too. Now, one question that I know sort of Christian mentioned before the show, and I'm super curious to hear everyone's responses to this too, and this sort of gets around to that Nergigante question you asked me a few minutes ago, Christian. That hasn't turned me off playing the game because I didn't see that as like an impenetrable wall. It's one I'm just going to have to work out a little bit harder and then feel the reward once I actually get past it. But I'm curious whether any of us have actually been turned off playing a game because they felt it was too hard. Like, is there something that you just wouldn't touch because you saw it as unattainable? Yeah, what would you guys say?
I'm very curious, yeah.
I tried, I can't remember if it was Demon Souls or Dark Souls. I discovered that I don't appreciate extreme repetitive play.
So that flow of bashing your head repeatedly against the same thing just doesn't appeal to you?
I mean, I appreciate difficulty. I like a good challenge, but there wasn't enough, for me personally and my tastes, there wasn't enough supporting it, like narrative or, me connecting with a character. Like, there was no depth. It was, can I roll well? No. Okay, yeah, I'm a bit tired of rolling. Why am I rolling? No one's telling me why I'm rolling. I'm over it.
What's my motivation to roll?
Yeah. Not die.
For me,
that's it.
For me, it's, as I said before, fighting games. I love the idea of fighting games. And as much as I'd like to say that I can just play them for the fun of just playing them, constantly getting bodied online and just losing over and over again because I'm just not good enough at the game, it's just not a fun experience. So it's, I would love to play more fighting games online competitively, but they're too difficult for me. I'm just not good enough.
So I have a question in that regards, and because this is my own ignorance speaking here. Do a lot of the online fighting games do a similar thing to Overwatch where they have, or Hearthstone, where they have the ranks and a competitive versus quick play sort of thing, or casual play?
They do.
Is that a common thing?
A lot of them do, not all of them do. But what you find with player bases in fighting games is when a game first launches, there'll be plenty of people who are your skill level, complete amateurs to play against, but there's a massive drop off. And then after a community establishes itself, it's just good players that are left, and most of the amateurs and the newbies me in most cases, get scared away. And then it becomes really inaccessible, I think, for new players to enter that, because you jump in online and the bottom ranked person is just way above your skill level.
That's a shame.
I think that's fairly common amongst a lot of games, not just fighting games, though.
Yeah, yep.
Absolutely. I think player unknowns will probably get to that point eventually as well. A lot of online first-person shooters like CSGO is probably another good example. Like I would wager that
easily,
the vast majority of the player base that's still invested in that game has a good amount of skills. So
I'd argue Overwatch has already gained there a little bit as well,
yeah, possibly. Blizzard
just
probably
from our own experiences.
Blizzard probably benefits a little bit from the market being a little bit more sort of mainstream general gamer as opposed to hardcore competitors. But no, I definitely agree with you.
And team games, it takes the edge off a little bit when there are other people around you. And even in PUBG, you might not be particularly good at it, but you might survive for 10 minutes, or you might get one kill or something
there's that
like
random
that.
element.
There's a fighting game, it's you and the other guy's there, and you just get smashed
dead.
and it's over in a minute. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So to answer the question for me, there's probably two games that I've been turned off from in terms of not just difficulty, because one of them I know is not necessarily as difficult as I'd mentally make it out to be, but it's more just that I don't think that for me the payoff would be worth the investment in actually learning how to play it properly, and that's Rocket League. I'm actually not hugely a fan of trying to learn that game because A, it's not my preferred genre to begin with, and B, because I know that the amount of time and effort it would take me to actually get to a point where I would start having a bit of fun with actually being okay at it, I'm just not willing to put that effort in. So, but the other one that I have steered away from deliberately because of the sheer amount of learning that would go with this game to sort of get anywhere is EVE Online. Like,
Yes, me too.
I was going to say that one.
You need to agree for that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's impenetrable to me for a lot of different reasons, but it's also a game I can enjoy sort of just, existing on the sidelines of and sort of seeing it from afar. I don't feel like I need to play it.
Yeah.
So
reading those news articles about crazy shenanigans happening.
exactly.
Yeah, where they had to slow everything down times a billion just to get through a space battle. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
The time investment, I don't feel it would be worth it to get to a point where you being any length of competitive in any
You
aspect
know what
of that
would
game.
have to happen? We'd have to dive in together
Yeah, that's it.
and fail miserably together so that it's a shared experience with funny stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
One day in the distant future.
When we're all unemployed and got nothing better else to do.
When we're sick of Sims 4, which will be never.
No, that will be never. For sure. All right. Well, did we
Good
want to add
talk.
anything else? Yeah. Seems like
I
we've
think that
covered
about covers it.
difficulty and accessibility. I mean, I would love to hear more of a game developer's perspective on that, as well as to some of the things that they've thought about when it comes to crafting their creation, and whether they're sincerely worried about including additional options for different markets, or whether they're sort of chained to their creative vision and they don't want to compromise for any reason whatsoever. I think there will be a good amount of diversity of thought out there for that kind of thing. But
Definitely.
all right. Well, anyway, thanks for the chat, guys, and thanks everybody for listening tonight. Hope you've enjoyed the show. As per usual, you can contact us outside of our recording time, and you can do that by what, Jam?
You can email us, mail@partyloaded.com. I'm so glad it's all written down now.
Yeah.
On Facebook, we are Party Loaded. On Twitter, @PartyLoadedShow, and youtube.com/channel Endgame. Or use the Googles, because we can be found through the Googles.
That's it.
Ugly muggly.
So a good example of difficulty versus accessibility. I figured, making the wrap up with our contacts a bit more accessible for you guys is probably better than making it a difficult option.
But even easier is just Google Party Loaded.
That's true. That's your
Easiest difficulty.
That's your basic narrative setting for getting all the things.
Done.
Yep.
2 seconds.
That's it. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna probably try and have another crack at Nurgigante tonight because I've got a score to settle with that piece of shit. So
You can do it.
yeah. What's everyone else doing?
More
I will
Monster Hunter
play
for
some
me.
more Trailmakers.
Yeah. I am tempted to have a look at that now, actually, Ollie, after you mentioned it tonight. That sounds kind of cool.
Good fun.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll pick up Armello.
Yes.
Do it.
Yes.
Pull the trigger.
Yep.
We also have to play Forts, our party game of the
Ooh,
month,
yeah.
That's
which
it.
we're
Yes.
reviewing next week.
Probably should.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
just
it.
a little bit more.
Well, as fate would have it, we have a long weekend coming up this weekend, so a bit of extra time for a bit of the gamings, as long as we don't have too much real life stuff on, which I have no idea if you guys do. So we'll have a
Me
chat.
either.
We'll have a chat about whether we can get together and do a bit of that. That sounds like a good time to be had. So Cool.
Sounds good.
That's it. So, on that note, next week we will be back, of course, to chat all things Forts and Party Game of the Month. And Ollie will also be back as well for his final appearance on the regular show. So, Ollie.
Yes.
That's it. What's going on?
Where?
I has life stuff and shiz and other hobbies and stuff. And
Grown adult.
Yeah, I am a relatively, well, not time poor. All my hobbies are super time intensive. All of them.
I really appreciate them though because you've painted up my D&D mini and he looks so fucking fantastic. It's beautiful.
So yeah, I won't be appearing on the regular show, but similar to Mimo, I'll appear like when there's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, or I just get dragged into it.
It will be
That's
dragging.
also a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I won't disappear off the face of the planet,
No.
and so there will be the occasional salty episode.
The salt
We
is
just
out.
get some
Otherwise-
reviews going, more salt.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's it.
So it may be without their Naismith for a while.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
That's
I
right.
could do that. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'd be great at that.
It's basically just
I
disagree
had
with
to.
everyone, but try and back it up
I
with a valid
enjoy
point.
doing that.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Jam has a switch she can just turn on and be a shit at any time of day. She's really good at it. So
It's talent. It's a skill.
Yeah.
I put it on my CV.
practice makes
You're
perfect.
proficient in it.
Yep.
Plus 10.
Yep. So I guess for everyone listening, basically what that means is we're going to have another bit of an evolution of the show as we have done of recent times. But Party Loaded will continue to be myself and Jam and Christian for the most part. And we'll be getting a whole bunch of talent to come and hang out with us and talk about different things in the gaming stratosphere. So never fear, we've got plans. And I'm sure it will create a great variety and diversity of content and opinion moving forward. So more on that as time progresses. So yeah, lots of exciting things ahead. But thanks, Ollie. We'll catch up with you a bit more on that next week. But thank you for listening, everybody. Enjoy your gaming this week. If you've got a long weekend, enjoy that too. And we will see you in 7 days' time. Good night for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.